Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hubbub here at the Launchpad in the Arkansas Regional Innovation Hub. We have a couple of special guests here with us tonight, Danielle Applestone and Angie Frkowiak from Other Machine. They've created the Othermill CNC machine, which we received ours yesterday. We're very excited about that. And they were kind enough to be on the Hubbub tonight. And wow, we are so fancy this evening.
This is great.
And we're really excited because you guys are our first virtual guests. We've virtually have had guests before, but you're the first virtual guest. You guys, other than being from this wonderful company, Other Machine, and with this great product, Othermill, that we're enjoying the heck out of today, you both happen to be members of the ASMSA Mafia, so you're both ASMSA graduates, right?
Yeah, we both went there.
You both went there. So for those of you who aren't listening right now, who aren't familiar with the, all right, Arkansas Science School for Math, Science, and the Arts. Okay.
Yeah.
Or as I like to call it, asthma, because I have to give them a hard time whenever I can. But you guys both went there, and it's phenomenal. And tell us where you're from in Arkansas.
I'm from Mena, Arkansas, so west central, over by, most people have heard of, like, Queen Wilhelmina State Park. Yeah, town of about 6,000 over there.
And Angie, where are you from?
Hey, Joel. I'm from Bentonville, Arkansas. I think everybody pretty much knows where that one is.
Yeah, I just got back from Bentonville the other day. Great. And now are you both residing in San Francisco now? How does that work?
No, I'm in San Francisco. I mean, I work in San Francisco, live in a town called El Sobrante, and Angie's in Austin, Texas.
Wow, both of you at the core of everything exciting. Well, fantastic. We're here in Little Rock. We're hoping to reach the next new Austin, and then maybe one day we'll be San Francisco, and none of us will be able to afford to live here. How about that?
I guess that's what success looks like.
Yeah, well, you know. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about success. Tell us a little bit about you guys' background. I want to hear about Other Machine, Othermill. So this is the way the Hubbub works. We usually start with about 15 minutes of enjoy yourselves, toot your horn, throw in some false bravado if you like, and then we'll take the other 10-15 minutes and we'll throw all of our questions at you guys. So whenever you're ready, go.
Sure, okay. I like to do things chronologically, so I would start at the beginning. Actually, the way that I got interested in making things and science in general was doing Aegis camps. And I think I went to maybe 3 Aegis camps during my time in Arkansas when I was a middle schooler. And while I was at one of those, I learned about the math and science school that was not yet even built or working at that point in time, but decided immediately that's where I wanted to go. And got in there and met a ton of kids just like me, kind of weirdos from middle of nowhere who were a little bit nerdy and needed more to do. I think most of us needed more to do.
We wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, idle hands and minds there. But then ended up going after that. Went to MIT and studied chemical engineering, and that was great. I didn't really realize what chemical engineering was until almost my senior year, and I realized there's not a lot of chemistry. It's mostly process. So after that, I ended up going to graduate school at UT Austin for material science and engineering, which I found was it's amazing. Material science is someone comes to you and they say, hey, we need a new material that has these properties and there's these constraints, and then you make it for them. which was really fascinating. And that's what I thought they meant when they said chemical engineering, but it's really material science engineering. Yeah.
So you're all about parameters then.
I do like parameters. Well, design needs constraints. Like good design needs constraints.
I like that. All right. So what led you to Other Machine?
I guess I had been training myself to do battery materials. That's what I worked on and did research on when I was at UT. But there was something in the back of my mind that was always kind of thinking about running a company and being, I don't know, like I guess I'm kind of bossy sometimes too, and I love to plan things. And the more time I spent in material science, it was mostly just like me in a lab. But I really wanted to do more, like organize people and run, manage the lab and things like that. And eventually, I took the plunge. I came out to California to interview for some jobs, and an old friend of mine, Saul Griffith, who I met at MIT, said, well, there's this project. It's a DARPA-funded project, so a government agency funded this project, and they want us to build desktop-sized, computer-controlled machines for the classroom so that we can expose students to digital design and fabrication with machines. And wouldn't you like to be a part of, building the tools for shop class for the 21st century? And at that moment, it was really me deciding whether or not to be one engineer working on a problem, working on battery materials and energy storage, or could I be a person who is trying to create maybe millions of engineers in the future by giving them tools at an early age. And for me, it was not an easy choice because I had to give up being the technical person. But every day since then has been super satisfying to me because I do believe in the original mission, which was to build these types of tools for students so that they could get exposed to modern manufacturing techniques and reduce the distance between a person with an idea and an actual finished product that does what they want it to. So yeah, that's how I ended up running this company. Well, I mean, and then we did about a year of development with DARPA, and then didn't get to continue on that grant because of government sequestration in spring of 2013. So we ran a Kickstarter campaign, and then raised some money from outside investors, angels, and venture capital firms. And now, I guess that brings you up to date. Now we're shipping and selling machines.
That is great. That's great. So what's it like working for DARPA?
I got so happy, actually, during my time working with DARPA, because every single person that I met from there cared so much about everyone else, basically. They were true public servants, all of them, and it gave me a lot more faith in government agencies in general, especially the ones like ARPA and the DOE and things. And I didn't have a lot of that when I was in college. It's kind of an unpopular thing to be pro-government in college. So it was nice to experience people who were truly there for the good of the public. They're really trying to invest in things for the future, and of course it's related to defense. But they were also trying to open doors for people, which I thought was amazing. And then, I'm kind of a organized person, so fitting into the military way of doing things was fine for me.
I think it just sounds cool to be able to say, well, I worked for DARPA, but it's just fun. So did you and Angie meet at Austin, or is this something that were you guys friends before Other Machine?
Yeah, we were roommates in high school.
Were you really?
Yeah.
At ASMSA? Angie's nodding her head.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And now you're working together. It's fantastic. So all right. About you. So I have some folks here that I would like to ask you some questions. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
You're going to need to step over to the microphone to ask questions.
I can pass the mic. You guys ready for anything?
Hey, I'm Erin. I work with Joel at the Hub. And thanks. Just want to say thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been really fun. The machine arrived. Let's see, what day? Yesterday. And so we all went, woo! We're so excited, and we pulled it out. And so we just got kind of playing with it today. So, how long does it take the average person to learn how to use your machine? I'm just curious. Someone asked me that today, and I said, I don't know. And I said, what kind of background do you have? And they said, I don't have any. How fast could I learn how to use this?
Well, it really depends on the level you want to get to. So presumably you've already done the Hello World project, which takes you through the entire process of loading a file, loading a tool, putting your material on the machine and press and go and all of that. And that's really only maybe 20 or 30 minutes. And that's about how long it takes people to get familiar and like comfortable with the machine. Like, oh, this is what it sounds like. This is how I need to interact with it. You know, what files I need to give it. Beyond that, most people will do an engraving like as the next project. So, for example, I have like this bracelet that I made in brass. You can see it. So it has words engraved in it. This is just a 60-cent piece of brass that I got from the hardware store. And I just drew in Inkscape what I wanted to engrave, and then imported that, saved an SVG file, so a vector file. So it's just a drawing file. And then the machine just leads you through the process. So I would say really comfortable about 5 to 10 hours, to the point where you're like, oh, this is how I need to set up my file. This is how I fix something, like stick something down to the machine to be cut. But yeah, usually engraving, and then people do printmaking, and then people will do like 2D parts that form up into a 3D object. People do that often as the kind of next step, and then moving on to more like 3D modeling, like in Fusion 360 or something like that if they're just getting started. Yeah, it's great. It took me a while to get totally comfortable cutting metal. That was like the barrier for me, but it's really fine.
That's fun. What's been your most favorite thing you've ever made? Just curious.
Yeah, my favorite thing was actually this wood inlay that I did, and it was one of the first things that I made, but it was just a dark circle of wood and then a light piece of wood with a letter on it, and just being able to cut exactly, I've got this disc of wood that I cut out, and then I cut exactly the letter in it, and then the little tiny letter of light wood fit exactly in it, and I was just able to like press it in, sand it a little bit, and it was perfect. I think that was the most satisfying, because it was like, oh, I can totally use this machine. Like, this is possible.
That's cool. That's cool. Let me see if anybody else has any other questions. Hold on. Anybody else?
Hey, so what are some of the cool things that you've heard other people doing with the Othermill?
Did we lose her?
Are we still
Nope.
there?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm here.
Okay, did you hear my question?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So by far my favorite one is this guy up in Canada who made a connected device, but his connected device was an ice fishing rig. So he built this short fishing pole that is I don't know what kind of sensors or whatever it has on it, but basically when he gets a bite, it will send a signal to this wearable device that he has on him. He's like, away in a hut, staying warm, instead of being out by the fishing pole. And it vibrates whenever he gets a bite, and he's able to go out and either keep the fish and put new bait on or let the fish go, which drastically increases the rate of survival for the fish, which I just thought was totally rad. Like, this guy decided, like, what would make this whole experience better? Okay, well, if I didn't have to stay out here, I could stay inside. I could, like, be inside, and but when I stay inside, sometimes fish I don't want to keep, like, they die because I forget or I fall asleep or something like that. So I love that, because it's truly, to me, it kind of embodies the whole process of, like, I see a problem, I see something that could be better, and I have the tools to solve the problem. So for me, that's really the most exciting.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so to me, it's like anybody who builds anything that I wouldn't have built, it's like, oh, that's great. You get to do this thing, and you didn't even have to ask permission. You just built this thing and solved a problem.
I love that.
Yeah, today was a day that I saw actually the first solid example of someone replacing something that they had in their life that was broken with a part that they had othermilled. And it's those, like, on backpacks, they have the strap with the clip that goes in the holder, and the clip kind of has the two pieces that, like, squeeze together and then hold. So this guy was just milling out the shape of one of those, and it actually works exactly the same. So he traced the buckle, and now there's a replacement buckle, and he's experimenting with, like, different thicknesses of things. And were we connected that whole time?
No, we weren't, but it was great.
Still be good.
Okay.
You don't have to recount your entire story, but
Where did you lose off? Did you hear the whole ice fishing story?
oh yeah.
Okay.
You
The other one
started
was
to
the
talk. You
buckle
started talking
story.
about the buckle.
Well, I just think it's great because most of the things that people, when people talk about 3D printing, they're like, oh, if I could have one at home and I could print replacement parts, but that's really difficult a lot of the time. You have to do 3D modeling, or the company that made the thing has to send you the file. But in this case, with the buckle, like for the backpack, it's just a 2D object, really. It has, contours and things which make it optimized, but if you're making a replacement one, you could just trace it out and then mill it. And he actually milled it out of black Delrin, which is just a, standard plastic, and it looked great and worked well. And so he was experimenting with, like, what was the right thickness to get the right amount of flex in the clip parts. But yeah, I like it that there's actually there's a use. You can actually repair things with it. And this another guy actually, he was working on a car, a really low cost race car. It's like $500 is the maximum amount you can spend. And so he took this part. It was like a rubber part that it bolts to. It's like the exhaust manifold for the car. And it's usually this rubber part which falls apart, but he's like, oh, I can pay $1 or $10 for a piece of aluminum, and he milled out a replacement part and just bolted it to the car, because it technically didn't add any cost. But that part that he replaced is one of the ones that fails often. So that was also awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like the idea of ubiquity, just like with 3D printers and with the idea of CNC mills. Where do you sort of see this technology going when we really develop the idea more mainstream? Like you were saying, like the buckle. What do you see happening with milling and with 3D printing in the near future?
So the place I see this going is actually pretty different from what the world looks like now. But you can imagine that there's all sorts of things in our life that really benefit from being customized. And one easy example is your clothing, for example. Like, you go to the store and you're really getting an average. It's something that mostly fits you, and the companies that make the clothes have to decide what the fashion needs to be. It's set in stone, like long ago. They make all of the clothes, they ship them on big racks to each of the stores. But I think that, and that's just clothes, one example. But I think that you can compete with really low margin businesses like apparel if manufacturing truly is everywhere, and instead of the Gap or something sending files to, or instead of the Gap sending racks of clothes, they're just sending files to local places where clothes are made, and they're made specifically for you. The only way that's cost effective is if manufacturing tools are super simple to use and everybody knows how to use them. So the world that I see is really where we get to compete with all these low margin, like Walmart and Amazon is mostly outsourced everything, very low margin business. It's very hard to compete on price. But if we had distributed manufacturing where you can get it custom made for you and also at low cost, that's a better experience for the consumer, and I think it's a better quality of life overall. And so I think, I don't know, that's the future that I hope for, is actually distributed manufacturing, where instead of just going to the Walgreens for Walgreens stuff, you're also going to get pants or hearing aids or glasses or whatever manufactured for you.
It's funny that you said that, because you just made me think about something. Just recently, I like to sew, and my background is design and film and television. But I actually needed to just sew and repair a jacket that I had, and it had wooden buttons. So I went to I won't say the name, but to a local establishment to buy some buttons. And to get wooden buttons, like 4 wooden buttons, were $16. And I just, of course, but even before we got the Othermill, we had a laser cutter, and I just found myself going, well, I could just make that for a few cents. It's, it's just maple. But yeah, I do. I see your point, and I think about that a lot. I think about the things like the the little plastic clip that holds your bag of potato chips closed. That there's so much that we sort of buy that's created by the billion that we could easily manufacture in our home or just sort of make for ourselves, whether it's through the process of 3D printing or milling. So yeah, I agree with you. I see a lot of that. Do you see large industry embracing that or rejecting that in the near future?
Well, it depends. I'd like to think about industry or like larger manufacturers as just aggregating demand. The reason they have to aggregate demand is they invest a lot in the infrastructure. So lots of machine tools. They train people a long time to be able to do things correctly. And if you reduce that cost of building the infrastructure and the training and everything, you don't need to aggregate that demand in order to be cost effective. You can still produce parts at a price point that the consumer wants, but you can do it everywhere, and you can actually get it to them faster than before. So they better embrace it.
Yeah. So
it's also less waste, less money spent on fuel, shipping things.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the idea of microfactories. That's been getting a lot of real grace in the press lately. You start to the latest issue of Popular Mechanics just came out, and it's about makers, and that's one of the things that they really talk about in that is microfactories, and rather than creating new giant industrial forces, it's exactly what you said. It's that idea of aggregating out and introducing industry into the heart of community instead of this behemoth that grows up around where we live.
I think
But,
some things will always be mass-produced, but it doesn't have to be everything.
I agree. I think that's great. I think that's great. Well, we have used up your time. Oh wait. Except that Nicholas Norfolk has a question, so let's do that real quick before we say bye.
Totally.
Nicholas.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, great.
My question is about, you mentioned Aegis. I'm an Aegis person, so which Aegis programs did you go to?
Oh, I went to Future Scientists, and I went to Mission Mars, and I went to Artificial Intelligence, and I went to Project Go, which was like a geology one. I think I also went to Wet and Wild. I think I went to an Aegis camp every summer possible.
I did too. I went to one every summer since the 6th grade. So like Project Land, Project Caves.
I never got into those.
I got into artificial intelligence and Mission Mars, but I didn't accept to go to those. So, but I was just curious. Like I hear people talk about Aegis because like there are a bunch of Aegis geeks around. So it's like it's a great program.
No, it was awesome. I hope that sticks around forever.
And I'll just say that it's been very exciting having you guys here, and that we love having Arkansas geeks who are successful, and we really wish the best for you guys, and we're looking forward to using our Othermill, and we'll see what we can create here, and we'll hopefully stay in touch.
Yeah.
And we want to thank you both again, Angie Frakowiak and Danielle Applestone, for being on the Hubbub tonight.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy your time at Adafruit. While on your way out, see if you can grab a case of the Arduino Inventors Kits for me. and you guys, honestly, we wish you the best, and thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care,
you.
guys.
See you when you. Well, yeah, we'll see you when you come back to Arkansas. Okay.
All right.
Certainly.
All right. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.